What's going on? Today we're going to play some games with Banette EX Gardevoir. Banette is a really cool card. It's a stage 1 that has 250 HP, psychic type, and for 1 psychic energy it does 30 damage, and your opponent can't play item cards from their hand next turn. For psychic colorless it does 60 for each trainer card in your opponent's hand. Now that might sound a little underwhelming, like just doing 30 damage is not much. Pokemon have a ton of HP now, but a lot of decks are very reliant on items now, rare candy decks, lost zones, so it can be very strong. This Shuppet has 60 HP, which that's kind of unfortunate, but the attack makes it so this is definitely the one that you play. For 1 psychic it does 10 damage, and you flip a coin. If heads, your opponent can't play any items next turn. So in matchups that you go second that you wanted to go first in, it gives you a 50-50 chance of item locking them right away. We also have the Banette with the Puppet offering ability. It lets us put a supporter card from our discard pile into our hand, and we put the Banette into the lost zone and discard all attached cards. We have a 3-3-2 Gardevoir EX line, opting for 3 of the memory skip Ralts that can be very powerful. For 1 psychic it does 10, and you can pick an attack on your opponent's active and they can't use it next turn. So on like an Arceus V-Star, you can lock their attack and they only have 1 option for an attack, so they have to retreat into another Arceus. So stuff like that can be pretty good. And you know, we have Refinement Kirlia, really good card. Discard a card from your hand, draw 2 cards. Gardevoir EX is one of our other attacking options, but it also has that nifty ability. You can accelerate as many psychic energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon during your turn, and you put 2 damage counters on the Pokemon that you put the psychic on. You just can't knock out the Pokemon from accelerating energy. That part's kind of unfortunate, but we know the ability is really powerful. For psychic colorless, you do 190 and recover from all special conditions. That barely ever comes up. We have Mew EX for draw power, but also it has free retreat, which is nice. And the genome hacking attack for triple colorless, you can copy an attack from your opponent's active and restart. The ability says you can drop to 3, so that's good. That's really good. We can copy Greninja. I think it's probably mainly in there for Giratina V-Star. You can knock it out by copying the Tina V-Star's attack and then like finish off a game with that, because Arctina can be a hard matchup. They don't really rely on too many items, and they have the double turbos to retreat their barrels. So in that matchup, we probably just attack with Gardevoir EX and Mew. You can like 2-shot Arceuses with Gardevoir and 1-shot the Giratina V-Stars with Mew copying their Lost Impact attack. We have Alakazam. The ability lets us move 2 damage counters from one of our opponent's Pokemon to another one of our opponent's Pokemon. It's good since Banette only does 30. We can essentially keep something stuck in the active almost forever. And sometimes you just need to move some damage around to make math work for Gardevoir or Mew or whatever. Spiritomb stops basic V's abilities. That's good for Control, Charizard, Lugia, things like that. And then we just have the basic supporter lineup, and you will notice there's Calamitous Wasteland in this deck. That's a stadium you don't see very often. It adds an extra retreat cost to non-fighting Pokemon, so that is going to help us stick things in the active spot. That's very nice. We have the 2 boss, 2 prime catcher, or 2 counter catcher and a prime catcher to bring things in the active that your opponent doesn't want. This is a pretty cool deck. It's definitely on the harder side to play, and things can go south real quick. In like the Charizard matchup, if they get out 1 Charizard, it's going to be kind of hard to deal with, but it can be very powerful if, you know, a little luck goes your way and you go first. That being said, you do want to go first in every matchup that I can think of. So let's get into the games. Alright, so we're up against PAL, going first just like this deck wants to. This is one of the best matchups for this deck. If you go first, you can item lock them before they can even get out of Excalibur, but if you go second, you can always opt for the Shuppet coin flip and try to flip heads, and you basically do the same plan. You're kind of on a winning path. If you flip tails though, and they do get out the Excalibur, you also have an opportunity to item lock them, and they can never recover their energy, so they're only going to be able to really get through one Banette. So as long as you have another one to follow up, you'll be alright. Alright, I was just debating there which to get down, a Shuppet or another Ralts. I'm not sure what exactly the correct choice was, but I think Shuppet ended up being the right choice because I want to be able to get out 2 Banette EXs and have the option for the baby Banette to clean up a spot for my bench for when I want the Radiant Alakazam if I can't find the Turo to pick something up to put the Alakazam in play. Alright, my opponent is off to a pretty good start. They're going to Codebreaking. I don't know what more they would want, so I would really like to see them leave those cards on top of their deck to kind of Iono proof themselves. If they probably should have like concealed cards first and then use the Cipher, just because they're going to be able to draw the cards next turn. But I think, yeah, they're going to concealed into it. It's probably like Irida, Barrel, or something like that. Something to that effect. But they're going to get item lock next turn, so they're not going to be able to play those cards anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter. They start attaching to Greninja, that makes sense. They want to attack my board, but if I item lock them, that's like 5 turns before they can attach the 2 energy to retreat and the other 2 to Greninja. So yeah, so I just Cipher to put the Kirlia and the Banette on top of my deck. And then I can Trekking Shoes into one and Mew into the other. That's a really cool combo that I hadn't like quite thought about until playing this deck, because I've never played another deck with Trekking Shoes and Ciphermaniac. But can just retreat the Mew and hit the PAL for 30. And I'm in no fear. There's nothing they can really do this turn. They can draw cards with Ninja and attach an energy, and that's about it. But really what they should be doing is not drawing cards with their Greninja, because they can't ever get those energy back unless they get a turn off of item lock. And to get a turn off of item lock, they need to knock out this Banette and hope that I whiff. So they need at least, 5 energy to knock out a Banette EX? And that is 5 out of 8, so they already have 2 in the discard pile, so that's almost all of the remaining energy, and that's not counting me like bossing or prime catchering something up and sticking it into the active, which is my plan. As soon as they evolve into a Barrel, I would like to find the stadium that adds extra retreat cost and stick that in the active and item lock that and be able to Alakazam move damage onto the bench to maybe knock out the 2 Friggies, the 2 Bidoof, so Bidoof and Barrel, and then PAL for my last 2 prizes is what I'm thinking at this point for my prize map. And I just immediately Iono that hand. I had so many supporters in it. I just want to see another hand with more playable cards. It did have the Turo I wanted, which is the only downside of doing that, but I figure I'll just draw a new hand and hopefully I can get into a Guardian, another Kirlia. Now this is kind of an awkward decision. I have the EX I don't want to get rid of, the Alakazam I don't want to get rid of. Counter Catcher at this point, I really just don't see myself, even if I go behind in prizes, I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. That's more for other matchups. And I restart into the Kirlia, which is nice, because I can just trade that away without thinking too hard. I draw Prime Catcher energy. I can save that for next turn. I can either save the energy to trade away or attach it to the other Banette. I decide to hold on to it. I just hit this PAL for another 90. Now, I was expecting them to hit me once they got 2 energy on the PAL, just like discard 1 off of the PAL, 1 off the Greninja. It's smart that they're not, because I can just Turo this up and remove all their damage, so they're waiting until they have a one-shot. But they did evolve into that Barrel, which I have Prime Catcher in hand. I'm going to try to get a boss, because I'd rather use boss than Prime Catcher, but I am bringing that thing up and sticking it in the active, and it's going to have a 3 retreat cost. Now I can just trade away the other Banette. I have Super Rod. I don't think that I'll really need more than 2 Banettes in this game anyway. And I can just boss up that Barrel and Everlasting Darkness. So, yeah, we're in a really good spot right now. I'm just digging for Turo, which I have pretty good odds of finding next turn with only 17 cards in the deck. I get to draw 4 and the 1 for turn, and there's still Trekking Shoes left. I don't want to go too deep into my deck, because I don't know. There's like, I'm probably not going to deck out. I would win before I would deck out, but I don't really want to like create that risk. Because if I'm forced to use a super rod too early, that kind of feels bad. There's only one. And I Trekking Shoes into Trekking Shoes. And then I do whiff the Turo this turn, but that's fine. Because I can make it so I'm only doing 10 damage to the barrel each turn. And I could evolve the Shuppet into that other Banette and get it right out of play. But I might want another boss. I might want another Iono to stop from decking out. I want to like leave the options open. I'm in no rush. Even if they attach, I don't even care if they knock this Banette out, to be honest. I have another one ready to go. I'm not super worried about this Banette being knocked out. They don't even attach energy this turn, so they're down bad. They really shouldn't have bumped the stadium. They should have just held on to it. And now I get into the Turo, so I can just pick up that Mew. The game freezes a little bit here when I was playing, but I picked the Mew up and I'm going to just move damage onto the Friggies. I was thinking about moving it onto the PAL and just knocking that out when I could, but I just decided I really don't care if that even knocks me out. If once they knock out one Banette, all their energy is gone. They have no more water energy left. So they're not knocking out two. And yeah, I can just keep moving damage. I don't need to draw through my deck anymore. I only have 4 cards left. Just keep moving damage and attacking with Banette. I could evolve into the baby Banette. I could leave the option open. I don't know. It's hard to say. PAL doesn't usually play Iono, so I'm not worried about getting my hand disrupted. I'm not worried about being Greninja'd next turn, so I don't have to evolve to my Gardevoir. If they do play Iono, I can draw more cards. I have energy on my other Banette. They fail their Shivery Chill, so they're probably out of energy. I expect them to concede at this point once they realize that they can't win, and that's basically how the PAL matchup goes. Like, as long as you go first, you get a turn 2 item lock. That's what's going to happen. A lot of the time they will get through one Banette, but you're not worried about that because they're never going to get through 2. Alright, this is a game I played a while ago with a different build that I was working on for a Banette deck, but since PTCG Live is under maintenance like all day today, I have to use this if I want to get a video out today. It's kind of unfortunate. I really wanted to play some more games and get some better matches, but this is kind of what I'm left with now. And this is a Banette Salvador deck that I like a turn 1 go second and item lock your opponent on your first turn kind of deck that I was working on. And I only played a few games with it, and I saved this one just in case I didn't find a better one, but I usually want to at least get one game that's like pretty close and good and a little more exciting. This one's not bad though. I do flip the heads on the enveloping shadow attack, which is very nice. That's kind of what you have to do if you don't hit the Salvador. And in this deck, it was the next card, of course, or 2 cards in, but I play 4 Salvador in this one and a Lumineon. So I thought there was, you know, pretty good odds. It also has like a few switches and stuff. Just really trying to get that turn 1 Banette attack. And Salvador does come in handy later in the game because I am able to like at least evolve up my Shuppet there without having to find an Ultra Ball or anything, so that's kind of nice. And they Lumineon, and I'm kind of expecting them to get Arven for Forest Steel Stone here, and then Forest for a Charmeleon, and put a Charmeleon on the bench. They do boss up my Alakazam, that makes sense, but they do not use the Forest for the Charmeleon. So I wonder if it's like prized or something. But with that Vessel, I am able to get 2 more energy, and so I'm basically guaranteed to be able to retreat and continue the item lock. I have a tough Ultra Ball decision here. I really want to keep as many bosses as possible around, and I need that my Guardian in my hand to even be able to retreat. So I just get rid of the Hero's Cape. Charizard's one-shotting everything through a Hero's Cape anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I can Refinement away either Arven or Ultra Ball. I could have Arvened just for a switch, but I don't really need to do that. Now I can just attach, save the resources, retreat, and item lock, knock out this Charmander. I could also knock out the Pidgey though. I don't know, that's kind of what I'm debating there. If it's worth like bringing up the Pidgey, Alakazamming a couple damage over to it. And that's kind of what I was going to go for, but I realize I need to get these Charmanders out of play, because at some point he is going to find the Charmeleon right there. And now if he doesn't get down another Charmander, I can break the item lock and just knock this out, because I need to knock this Charmeleon out. It's going to evolve into a Charizard and it's just going to run through my entire board. Once it's a Charizard, there's nothing that I can do to one-shot it except for Poltergeist and hope that he has, what, 6 trainer cards? A whole handful of trainer cards, which is pretty unlikely. Yeah, now I just used Kirlia. I'm looking for another energy. It'd be nice to not have to accelerate it, even though it really doesn't matter too much, I guess, because if they get into a Charizard, they're knocking me out, but if they get into a Charizard, I lose anyway. And here I'm just like kind of debating if I want to item lock or not, or if I want to risk the Poltergeist. And because I have the switch in my hand and I can either hard retreat or use the switch. For some reason, I'm pretty worried about holding onto that switch. I think it's because I don't want them to trap a Kirlia in the active, because if they bring up the Kirlia once, I can accelerate the 2 energy, retreat. But if they bring it up again, I can't accelerate 2 with Gardevoir EX to it because it would knock it out. Yeah, I put that up. I probably should have played that to give them harder retreat options. And they do get down another Charmander. I imagine that's the last one, because they do not get another one. Or yeah, they would have got 2 if it wasn't, because now I can just hopefully find a boss, bring that up, knock it out, and I can just keep attacking with Guardy to win the game. If I don't get that though, I can just retreat back to Banette and continue item locking, because at this point I don't think most of the Charizard decks were playing 2 Charmeleon. Like right now there's good odds that they're playing 2 Charmeleon. Yeah, I'm just debating playing the stadium down. I don't know why I'm thinking about it so much. I think it's probably because they could stick my Alakazam in the active, but I have 3 energy in the discard. It'd probably be fine. They collapsed. What do I get rid of here? It's probably Mew, but they don't even let me decide, and they do concede. Now, sorry that wasn't 2 games with the winning deck. I might do another video on this. I don't know. It feels kind of weird doing 2 videos on the same deck, but like I can only really record during like the early afternoon and the morning, and PTCG Live is just not going to be up in time. So maybe I'll end up doing another one on it. I've been having a lot of fun with Banette lately, and this is, I don't know, I think it's 2 good representations of what can happen if everything goes right with this deck. Like against Chien-Pao, if you just go first and item lock them on your second turn, there's really nothing that they can do. And it's kind of the same with Charizard. You put a lot of pressure on them to find the Charmeleon. The only thing with that is if they have 2 Charmeleons, they get down 3 Charmanders and like are able to evolve up 2 of them, then you, or even just have another Charmander, you can't knock the one out because they'll just rare candy into the other Charizard because you didn't item lock them and just run through your board. So you might have to do something with the Calamitous Wasteland and like boss something up and stick it and try to move the damage to the other Charmander and then boss up the Charmeleon. I don't know, that matchup can definitely be really weird, but when everything goes right, I think that's like a pretty accurate representation of how it goes. I think it's a fun deck, definitely tricky to play. I would certainly practice this one before, you know, you bring it to your cups and regionals or whatever you plan on going to, but give it a try. Item lock is always a good time, and I think decks like this are good for everyone to like play a little bit with, because it gives you kind of some insight into some alternate win conditions that you can put into your normal gameplay that can definitely help you see lines and win conditions that you might not have seen if you hadn't played like item lock or stall-y kind of decks. But hope you enjoyed. Take care.